Hmm. 2020, the year that like nobody wants to talk about, but everybody can't stop talking about. It just threw everybody for a whirlwind. I don't think anybody was expecting 2020 to end up the way that it did. Um, and I think for me, at least, that was a good thing, or at least I'm trying to see the good in the craziness that was 2020. I think sometimes, even if it isn't a pandemic, or like this large in scale, there's always going to be some type of curveball that life throws at you that you're not going to expect. And so you kind of have to be ready to just make the best of whatever the situation is. And that can be hard to do when it seems like there's a new negative to think about or to consider every day. But it's life and it's our life now, and we have to continue to work through that. And so I guess this is my way of working through it, and I guess I'll share that a little bit with you. But before this year, I was a concert photographer, music photographer, and I was really looking forward to having an incredible year. A lot of the festival lineups that were dropping, I was super, super excited about, all of which got canceled, starting with the big one, Coachella, and then like the dominoes just kept falling. And I was holding out hope for like Port Castle Festival, but then that one like got canceled. It was just like a no-brainer that like things like Voodoo in New Orleans and Lollapalooza, it was a no-brainer that they were gonna not happen. So that was really discouraging. It was really depressing. Like I really was looking forward to that. I'm sure a lot of other music and concert photographers were as well, but that it just didn't happen. It just didn't work out, and that's okay. I only shot 5 concerts this year. I shot 2 in January, 2 in February, and 1 in December, so this month. And that was a socially distant concert, so it wasn't like a crowd or anything. And I was really just there with the bands. So that was a fun time. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. And I'm happy that I got to end the year with just one more little like hoorah, with concerts. But I think because I wasn't as focused on concerts, which I wasn't really making like any money off of, really, like here and there I would get paid to do a show, but I wasn't like a touring musician or anything like that. Not touring musician, touring music photographer. And so my first thought when I got sent home from my job to work from home was like, yo, I commute going and coming an hour each day. And as someone who loves to drive, let me tell you, commuting is not driving. Commuting is sitting in traffic. Commuting is miserable, okay? I don't miss that at all. And so I was like, you know what? If I give an hour of my day to commuting, I can give an hour of my day to learning video. And so that's what I did. In March, I started really paying more attention to my YouTube channel, starting to make video content, as awkward and as terrible as it was when I first started. And I've made more video content than I've ever made in my entire life this year. Prior to this year, I was doing video here and there, but not consistently, and definitely not at the level that I'm doing it at now. Not to the understanding that I'm doing it at now, where I understand editing and recording audio, I understand lighting so much better, I understand, recording frame rates, like which frame rates are going to work better for which situations, all those types of things. And what's really important to me as a videographer and as a filmmaker, and that's the story. That's creating something that is going to resonate with people. That's infusing messaging into a video. I think that's what takes it further than a video. That's what makes it a film. A video is just clips being put together, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did that for a long time, and those can be really fun and really catchy, and attract a lot of people. But a film is what's going to keep people. A film is what's going to stay on people's minds. That message, that feeling that they got when they watched it. And I'll be doing that both for YouTube, for the video podcast, for nonprofits that I've been working with, for commercial clients. So I've really had like a nice run the mill and like diverse set of work that I've been able to work on as a filmmaker. And I do consider myself a filmmaker now that I know what I'm doing, what I mean? Now that I know the different components that make a film what it is. So that is an area that I'm definitely glad that I like stuck with, even when I just felt like, oh man, I have such a hard like hill to climb. Like the learning curve was so steep when I started. As a photographer, there's just a lot of things that we just don't have to think about when it comes to video. So it was a big learning curve for me, mainly audio. Audio was my biggest crutch. And so like that was discouraging at times, but I've worked through that, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I stuck it out. And I'm glad that like this pandemic gave me the time to do that. And I understand there's a lot of things like competing for your time during a pandemic, especially like how you're gonna like pay your bills, where your next meal is gonna come from, like taking care of your family members, making sure they're safe. I get it. I'm not saying you know, like if you didn't spend your time growing as a creative, then like you're doing something wrong. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying, as somebody who's single, no kids, live by themselves, and who was deeply yearning for that time to just create, this is what the pandemic gave me. And I'm forever grateful for that. And so that was like definitely such a big takeaway for me this year. The video podcast, oh man, I love that. I started that video podcast, Honey and Hustle. I had no idea what I was doing, honestly, and I might get canceled for this. I had never really been a person that like listened to podcasts like that. Like I'm not really like, I don't know. I just never got into podcasts. Maybe I just never found like the right one, but I just like, I never was like a super podcast listener. And then I did the video podcast and then I got more into that. Like aside from the Food Truck Scholar by my friend Ariel Smith, like I really didn't listen to podcasts like that. So yeah, I just didn't pay attention to it. But then like the video podcast started and that just like took off. And then again, I realized why, because I was 3 years in as a business owner. So like, whereas when I first started my photography business as a freelancer, you know, that's what I was. I was a freelancer. I was just one person, you know, showing up, shooting, delivering, that's it. And then once I grew in my understanding of how to run a business, how to run a creative business, and really create an experience for clients and understand branding and messaging and all of those types of things, then I was able to apply that to Honey and Hustle, and people just clicked with it instantly. The name, badass. I mean, can you blame me? And then the messaging, people just, they immediately gravitated to it. They immediately understood what the podcast was about, what my messaging was about throughout the show, which is just like creating positive interchanges and positive storytelling through business owners, through creative entrepreneurs, through nonprofit owners, people that have been in the game for at least long enough to have some expertise of what it takes to be successful and what their journey looks like for them and what worked and what didn't. So I'm excited to see where that goes in 2021. I think this season has been taking a different tone than the first season. I think the first season was more about like lessons learned. And this season is more about hard truths. I'm glad to get into those because it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. If a business was just you showing up, doing a service and people paying you money, everybody would do it. My guests have been incredible. I'm so excited for you to meet more of them this year. And shameless plug, if you haven't liked me on Facebook at Honey and Hustle, please go do that. Be sure to check that out. There's tons of great content coming for you there. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn. Again, I'm not ashamed because I think it's an incredible podcast and I think you'll get a lot of value from it. Going back to my career, what my career looked like before the pandemic, I was doing a lot of weddings. And I still did a decent number of weddings this year, but they looked a little bit different. I was fortunate in that a lot of my weddings, well, pretty much all of my weddings were in the fall this year. So I didn't have any that were canceled. My couples just simply downsized or chose to elope. But beforehand, like I know there's a lot of my wedding vendor friends that were like shook, like this was not good. I mean, the wedding industry, event industry, music industry, entertainment industry, hospitality, I mean, they just got gutted. And I just felt like so bad for them. But as a wedding photographer, I mean, like the best thing I could do was just continue to be good at my craft, continue to grow my craft, and continue to try to give back. And so I was thankful that my last wedding of the year, I was blessed to be in a position to give a couple the wedding photography of their dreams. So I partnered with Kate's Farm at Cane Creek here in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and some other awesome, incredible vendors that John put together to create just kind of like a wedding vendor dream team for one lucky couple that want to give away for a free wedding. We did a Thanksgiving wedding, so it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and that even was just like a blessing in and of itself. Like one, I was able to bless the couple, but then we're also able to get their love story shared on the news, ABC 11, which is the local news station here in Raleigh-Durham, and the New York Times, which is like incredible to think about that at 26, you know what I mean? I have like photos in the New York Times. Like that's just like beyond anything I could have dreamt of for 2020. And I'm just so grateful for that opportunity. And just like, again, like when you're doing the work and when you're doing it from a good place, I feel like that has just like been a reward in and of itself. That's been like the greatest thing that 2020 has given me. Just like do the things you're passionate about, do the things that you have time for, make time for the things that you want, and do good work, and everything after that will come. And so that's just been my experience and something that I'm super grateful for. I've been able to tap into producing the podcast, being a podcast host. I've never hosted anything, so really learning like, yes, it's a conversation, but also I'm presenting someone and who they are and their work to an audience of people who have potentially never met them. So, how can I best highlight them and amplify their voice and give them a platform that's going to add value to them and the people that are watching them? So that was a unique experience, and I did it from beginning to end. So, like booking the guests, hosting, editing, all that, disseminating, determining how I'm going to distribute the podcast, which was a learning lesson in and of itself. So yeah, so that was a really nice creative surprise and creative avenue that I got to tap into this year. And I'm hoping that in 2021 I'll do even more of that exploration, maybe doing some directing of some short films, some writing of short films with a group of friends. So be on the lookout for all of that. And again, if you want to keep up with me, definitely sign up for my monthly newsletter at the link in the description. So we're a club, okay? Maybe not a club because that sounds really intimate and I don't want this video to get flagged for violating, social distancing protocols. We're not doing that. YouTube, Google, we're not doing that, okay? That's it for me. That was my 2020 in review. I think I'm just ending the year just so thankful, so grateful for each of every one of you that has subscribed, that has watched, that has liked the video, that has commented, and that's just been generally supportive via the internet this year. Happy New Year to all of you, and cheers to 2021.